ladies and gentlemen, in the Tupac murder trial, Keefe D's New Lawyers are going to try to get the 2009 tape confession thrown out. Will they be successful or not? If they are, the case could possibly be on shaky ground. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into some of the straight game.
Life is like the cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, Platinum Artist, Platinum Songwriter, Straight Game TV. I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, click on the thumbs up button. Also subscribe to the channel. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of the straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video. I'm going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Keefe D has obtained new lawyers. They seem like they're a little bit more experienced in trial, more of litigators, if you will, who handle, real live murder trials, criminal cases, and things of that nature. And so the first rule of thumb, what they're talking about is basically they're going to try to get the 2009 tape confession thrown out. They also talked about trying maybe subpoenaing P. Diddy, maybe trying to subpoena Suge Knight. Don't know if either of those are going to work in their favor. So, like I said, we back straight game, platinum songwriter, platinum artist, Delray Richardson. Like I said, we're going to deal with this effectively and efficiently, if you will. Now, today we're going to talk about the latest twist in the Keefe D murder trial. And let me tell you, this is one of the most legally messy, contradictory, and questionable prosecutions that I've seen, personally tied to the hip hop community in a long time, right? We're talking about the so-called 2009 confession tape where Keefe D allegedly told Las Vegas Metro Police about his role in the murder of Tupac Shakur. His lawyer at the time, Carl Arnold, right, just came out and said flat out that the tape was worthless at the time. But we're updating this based on the fact that Keefe D has obtained a new legal counsel. And with the obtainment of new legal counsel, there may be some kind of new strategy. They still have the motion before the Nevada State Supreme Court and trying to get this case thrown out again. Like I said, once again, Keefe D is claiming that he had immunity and that his cooperation with the government, federal government, that he shouldn't face these charges from that perspective. He tried it in January with the state trial judge, and it did not work. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's break it all down. And because this is serious, and like I said, I'm more infatuated with law in the process and how it's going to be carried out. Like I said, we can do the YouTube thing back and forth, but when you get in the court in front of a judge, it's a little bit different. So back in 2008, Keefe D sat down with the LAPD Gang Task Force, Detective Greg Kading and Daryn Dupree, right? That's the interview basically that y'all heard about in the Murder Rap book and documentary. But here's the key. That was under the proffer agreement. That particular interview was under the proffer agreement, right? And the proffer is basically you talk, you give up info, and turn, in return, you don't get prosecuted for what you're saying. So you can give up the info, you can implicate yourself, and all of those things, and you don't get prosecuted for what you admit. Immunity, protection, that's the law, 101. But a proffer agreement had certain restrictions. And so when you understand that, whatever your proffer agreement says, you have to abide by that, right? But here's where it gets messy. Months later, the Dupree, the officer Dupree allegedly pushes Keefe D to talk again, right? This time with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police and homicide detectives. According to Keefe D and his lawyer at the time, Carl Arnold, Keefe only agreed because he thought, ladies and gentlemen, once again, he thought the same immunity applied, right? He didn't get confirmation. He thought that the same immunity applied. But when you read the transcript, the cops makes him say on tape, no promises, no guarantees, nothing has been offered to him, right? So in 2008, that was the proffer agreement. In 2009, he agrees to talk to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and basically confesses on the transcript, part of the transcript, it says the cops ask him basically this, on tape, no promises have been made, no guarantees have been made, nothing has been offered to you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. And this is very clear. When you have legal counsel and, you walking into a situation like this, the first situation was made with the United States Attorney. That's more federal than it is anything because Keefe D was facing federal drug charges, right? In which he was going to be facing 25 to life. They worked out the deal. He confessed to the involvement of Tupac murder. That's what we heard in murder rap. But this one right here is 2009. No promises, no guarantees, nothing has been offered to you, right? This is basically what is on the transcript that they're going to be using to try to convict Keefe D involved in the murder of Tupac Shakur. So listen, so on one hand, you got a man thinking he's protected, right? On the other hand, you got police covering themselves legally by denying that protection in the transcript. That's a legal booby trap, if you will. Once again, it's a legal booby trap. And so whoever was Keefe D's lawyer at the time did not act in his best interest from that perspective. They were supposed to get in writing also that, this interview that I'm doing right here falls under the immunity agreement or the proffer agreement that I have with the U.S. Attorney's Office. He didn't do that. It was a legal booby trap, ladies and gentlemen, for the people who really don't understand, right? Right. So now, here's the kicker. This is insane. Carl Arnold, who has just been replaced, let me tell you, he's just been replaced by two new high-profile attorneys. Keefe's lawyer at the time, Carl Arnold, says Keefe actually contradicted himself in that 2009 interview, right? First, he says Orlando Anderson put the gun in the car. Later in the tape, he changes the story and tries to match what he said in the proffer, right? That's a direct contradiction. And any good defense lawyer will tell you contradictions weaken the credibility of the statement. Now, that's partially true, depending on who's giving the statement, right? And what other corroborating evidence or statement that person has made in regards to the case or to that testimony. So we got to, really understand that. Carl Arnold at the time, right, basically said that Keefe D's exact words. Obviously, Keefe was lying, is what Carl Arnold was saying. He doesn't even stick to what he said in the proffer in the middle of the interview, right? That's to be noted. So check this out. So if Keefe D's lying, if he's lying, if the story keeps shifting, if there was never immunity properly documented, then why is the DA even pushing to use this tape? Right? That's the question. Right? So if he's lying, if the story keeps shifting, right? And if there was never immunity properly documented, then why is the DA pushing to use this 2009 tape? You know what I mean? That's the question that we have to ask ourselves. And, I don't know if the DA is asking themselves that, but I understand why they're using it, because they were clear. They set the legal booby trap, right? And so Keefe D's lawyer at the time was supposed to. Like I said, once again, everything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law, right? And here's the real question. If prosecutors had this information in 2009, Orlando Anderson, the Glock pistol, Zip supplying the gun, why did it take 14 years or 15 years to bring charges against Keefe D, right? Carl Arnold at that time, like I said, he's been replaced since then. And this is important because, what new approach his new attorneys are going to take is going to be eye-opening. And, we'll wait to see what that is, right? But Carl Arnold at the time said it best. He said the case back then was no stronger than it is today. They had the same confession, the same names, the same elements, and the Clark County DA at the time didn't want to touch it. Why? Because they didn't believe they could win. That's partially true, but it's partially untrue, and I'm going to tell you why. So now, at that particular time, Vegas was going along. They didn't have to. But they went along with the U.S. attorney and said, hey, you know what? We got the confession. I guess the officer Dupree got Keefe D to come over and talk to Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. They got the confession, right? I don't know if he slipped up on some of what he said in the second confession or whatever have you, right? They got the confession. Everybody was happy. We know what happened, right? They weren't going to charge anybody based on the agreement that Keefe D made with the U.S. attorney. But what changed that, ladies and gentlemen? That's the question. What changed from 2009 until 14 years later when they decided to bring the charges to Keefe D, right? So when Carl Arnold said, yeah, because they didn't believe that they could win, partially true, but not really true. The real reason is that the state of Nevada, the prosecutions and the police officers in Nevada kind of sided with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Hey, don't charge him. We know what happened. He came in and he voluntarily talked to you guys. But the key was that the state of Nevada did not give Keefe D any kind of immunity, right? So what changed? Politics? Public pressure? Or is this about making an example out of Keefe D because everybody else tied to the case is dead, right? What we got to ask ourselves. So check this out. Ladies and gentlemen, this ain't about whether Keefe D is innocent or guilty in the streets, right? We already know what he admitted to in multiple interviews. The issue is whether, if his rights were violated, whether the police played dirty with him or whether this so-called confession tape holds up in court. Once again, whether his rights were violated, whether the police played dirty, or whether this so-called confession tape holds up in court. These are some of the key issues, right, that are going to play out in this whole scenario when you think about the big picture. So check it out. If the tape gets thrown out, the prosecution case is on shaky ground. If it stays in, it could be enough to sway a jury, even if the legal foundation is rotten, right? Even if the legal foundation is rotten, at the end of the day, this case is showing us something bigger when it comes to hip hop. The justice system will bend, twist, and blur the rules just to get a conviction sometimes. We just seen that somewhat in the Diddy case, like I said, when dealing with the government, whether it's federal government or state government. Like I said, once again, my thing is you can bend the law, but don't break it. You know what I mean? Like I said, don't put yourself in a position to be a judge by 12. You know what I mean? From that perspective. Like I said, more importantly, we're going to see what happens with this coming up because Keefe D's New Lawyers have said they plan on filing at least 4 or 5 motions. I'm trying to get some of the evidence thrown out. My thing is, will they be successful in doing that? We don't know. We're going to see what happens. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button. Do you think the 2009 tape should be thrown out? Or is Keefe D finally facing the consequences he dodged for years with all of his confessions on the many different platforms and the many different times he confessed to being involved in the murder of Tupac Shakur, ladies and gentlemen? Do me a favor, chime in and tell me what you guys think. I think this is very important. Like I said, your boy Del Rey, straight gang.
They said Tupac was untouchable, but behind the walls of Rikers Island, he was just a man, wounded, watching his back, and wondering who he could trust. He survived bullets, betrayal, and isolation behind bars. But what happened inside those walls has never been told until now. In the darkest corner of Rikers, he found betrayal and a brotherhood no one saw coming. These dudes smiled in my face, then flipped and tried to kill me, and I never saw it coming. They were Puff's security, Biggie's muscle, Henchman's people, and Tupac knew exactly who sent them. This is the side of Tupac Shakur the world never got to see, told by the man who lived it with him, not in the studio, but in a 6x9 cell. The rap battles, sex and drama with female guards, the tears, the silence after Jada Pinkett's visit, and the moment Tupac almost broke. Before Death Row, before All Eyes on Me, before Machiavelli, there was Rikers. Behind the Walls with Tupac Shakur, available now on Amazon. Get your copy. Learn the truth.